So I would say that it's important for focus is important. Um, Team building is important. Building a team because you cannot be the one doing everything. Team building is important, and of course, collaboration is important. Right now, we've gone into bread baking.
Hey guys, welcome to How They Did It with TriciaBiz, a show that takes you behind the scenes of successful African entrepreneurs, change makers, and creators, showing you the journeys that led to their success.
This episode is sponsored by Traction Apps, the growth partner for your business.
Life, they say, truly starts at 40. Today, I get to chat with a tenacious African entrepreneur who started her business 15 years ago with 1,000 Naira, selling a staple product, a very popular product called Moin-Moin. And today, that brand has been to the White House and beyond, and she has sold millions of Moin-Moin wraps to people home and abroad. So I am seated with the beautiful, delightful, delectable Mrs. Ayodeji Megbope of No Leftovers. The moment that went to White House. Yeah. It's so good to have you here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to this. So let's get into it. So we normally go all the way back and then come to present day. So what was it like growing up the daughter of a priest?
So, growing up initially didn't start with me being the daughter of a priest. My father was an engineer, was a civil engineer, actively serving with the federal government.
Okay.
And my mother was a full-time housewife. And it was cool. I'm the second of five.
Okay.
And very homely, closely knit family. My mother was there all the while. And Daddy was also very, very involved in our growing up. So when he became a priest, did things change a bit because we now church was a must for everybody.
Yeah.
We had to get up at certain hours of the day and all of that added to the responsibility of you're a priest's daughter. You're children of priests, so you must align. But thank God.
Fantastic. So I understand you went from there, and then someday you found yourself in typing shorthand school.
Okay, so the way you said it, you made it look like it was a very, very smooth transition. It certainly wasn't a smooth transition. So growing up came with all sorts of hurdles that I had to cross. I can look back now and certainly tell you that I'm grateful for those hurdles. But when those hurdles were happening, I certainly didn't see any light
joy
in what I was going through. It was all sorts of happenings, from issues centered around abuse, to me having issues with education, to me not having a clue over what I wanted to do, who I wanted to become, no self-esteem, no dream, nothing, just there. And my father actually gave me, he gave me the final warning that, look, now that you failed your school set twice, you've got to go out there and decide on what you want to do. And so getting involved in a typing and shorthand school wasn't as if I planned it. I stumbled on it. It was the only option I had. It was the only choice that presented itself to me. And so at least I had something to do. So I remember going back home to tell my father I had found this typing and shorthand school. And he just looked at me, he shook his head, and he really did feel sorry for me because he knew that I was made for more. I mean, he looked at my siblings and was like, look at what your sister has chosen to do. But I knew that at the back of his mind too. At least he was happy that at least she's doing something. So from typing and shorthand, my father saw that I was getting serious. And then he said to me, look, I can invest more in you. You go to a proper secretarial school. And so I went into a secretarial school. And then I began to become self-aware, knowing that I needed to take life seriously. And so I began to be more deliberate about the choices I was making, and my life began to have some form of shape.
So how was it like in that period where, you could see that your siblings were doing something more than you were? How did it make you feel? Especially the average African parent does this comparison versus other siblings. So how did you go through that?
So for me, it wasn't even as much as the pressure with my mom or my father comparing me with my siblings. It was more of the pressure of them comparing me with their friends' children.
Yeah.
And my mother it looked as if all her friends were teaching in my school. And so, and of course, most teachers' children do really well. And so my mom will go visit some of her friends who are teachers in my school, hear about their results, and she comes home saying, can't you see what this is doing, what that is doing? And what the effect that had on me initially was I didn't like people. I detested, because I was always being compared with people. So I really didn't want to, especially people who were doing well. I began to detest people who were doing well. And so when I found out that, not doing well was really getting my mom angry, a part of me wanted to continue not doing well. But when like I said, when my life began to take shape, I realized that I was doing myself. I began to take life seriously and began to really pray that, God, please help me to love people, because I found out that whatever it is I was despising, I could never attract.
Powerful. Okay, so you go to secretarial school, then what happens afterwards?
So I went to secretarial school. I was in secretarial school for 2 years. I began to meet different people because it was a different environment altogether. And it was a school that was also meant for adults, not just young people. I was like almost the youngest in my class. And I began to meet with people who had failed at some point in their lives, and they had the second chance. And so hearing their stories began to make me ask myself questions. And I began to take my faith seriously. I took my faith seriously. I began to be deliberate in praying. And so when I finished secretarial school, I finished with good grades. I sat for international exams. I did for those who know about secretarial administration, I did my Pitmans in typing and shorthand. I did my RSC. I did all of that. And I did very well. And so I graduated from secretarial school and I started working.
Okay.
My first place of work was a manufacturing company. And I was there for a few years. I was still the youngest. I was a secretary. I was the youngest. And I had different experiences. And all of that helped to shape my life because I had great bosses. I had bosses who, took me like their daughters. And it helped me to begin to also ask myself what it was I wanted to do. But then there was a limitation because as much as I aspired, I really didn't see what I could do to move myself forward. I still had the backlog of low self-esteem. I had the backlog of I was abused, and it was a dark secret I couldn't share with anybody. So I think that had a hold on me. Even though I strived to move on in life, the fact that I had a secret that I couldn't share with anybody had a hold on me. And so the times when I would try to take a step forward, I would remember my secret. It will cast a shadow on my aspirations. And then I'll sit back and say to myself, there's no point. Just stay where you are.
Wow. Okay. So you get your first job and then you keep going. Now, if I fast forward to age 40. Fast forward to age 40 and you are asking yourself, so what am I on earth for?
So fast forwarding to age 40 is a very, very fast one that you have done. And I won't be as fast as you are. I'll just backtrack a bit. Because during that process, I had begun to have desires. To start with, I began to open up. Like I said, I began to take my faith seriously. And so I began to hear messages about forgiveness.
Okay.
I particularly heard somebody say that for as long as you hold on to a secret, it will continue to have a hold on you. That to release yourself from that secret is actually to liberate you from the hold of the past. And so I began to desire to look for somebody to talk to. I had problems. I had issues around relationships because low self-esteem was there. And so it appeared as if I was ready. I was looking forward to anybody who would say, I want to be your boyfriend. And I got my fingers burnt on a number of occasions. But then, towards the end of my studies, I had this guy who was my boyfriend. And I started having this relationship with him just because he was in Unilag. I hadn't gone to university. And so it was a big deal for me to, to have an affair with, to be in a relationship with somebody in a university. Did I like him? I don't know. It's just that, well, I was happy that he was in Unilag. But I knew also that it wasn't really smooth. I felt that we were both at the same level. And I knew that with that, for as long as I surrounded myself with people who were at the same level as I was, or people who were below me, then there would be little or no opportunity for me to grow. And so I began to hunger for people who were better than me. And that's how I met my husband. So, well, let me rephrase that. We had actually always been family friends. But then he took an interest in me, and that was so liberating for me. And so when he now said to me he wanted us to have a relationship, I was excited. One thing led to the other. We got married. And I began to grow. Marriage for me was a deliberate beginning of another process for me. So we had been married for like 12 years before 40. 12 years. I got married at 24. So that's 16 years actually. So the 16-year gap was a serious process for me. I worked in like 3 places. My last place of work was Corona School. And I enjoyed working in Corona School. I spent 9 years there. Wow. I was even more excited that our children were able to go to Corona School because it was a dream my husband had. Himself and all his siblings had attended Corona School. And so he kept saying he was just looking forward to his children attending Corona. And so our children went through Corona, and then our son had left school, was just our daughter, and I was just tired at that point. I was tired. I was 40. 40 was appearing very depressing to me. I kept going through 2 lines. A fool at 40 is a fool forever, or life begins at 40. The more I thought of life begins at 40, I had hopes. So I said, I decided to hold on to life begins at 40. And so thinking about that, meditating about that, and looking around me, looking at the people that surrounded me in Corona School, not so much as my friends, but looking at parents who brought their children to school, saying that there was really not much difference in us, except for what was in our heads, what was in our minds. And so I began to think positively. I began to take a cue from there. I began to develop strength. And I said to myself, I can do something for myself. That's how 40 began to have a definite impact in my life.
Wow. That's like a full...
I know, right?
And we did a lot of skipping because we can be here for hours.
We can.
Going through everything that happened. So you're teaching, you're a secretary at
Corona School.
So when did you decide, you wanted to leave and pursue entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I was a secretary in Corona School, Ikoyi, for 9 years. And at that point, when I was tired of everything, I thought to myself, what exactly can I do other than this? While working in Corona, I had tried taking courses, going for programs, and to be able, I remember going to Unilag and all of that. But I was haunted by what I went through as a child. Haunted by the fact that I went through abuse. My mom was a full-time housewife and nobody knew.
And she didn't notice.
And so how would I be sure that this doesn't happen to my children? And one of the decisions my husband and I took when we got married was that we're not going to have any house help. And that is why till date, next year will be 30 years in marriage.
Wow.
We have never had a house help because of that singular decision. And I'm grateful we made that decision. So when I tried to enroll in school, there were times when my husband and I would make arrangements, or that there was a particular period, we felt the children were old enough to take care of themselves at home. But the thought of what I'd gone through haunted me, and I had to stop. And so I resigned from Corona because I just felt, okay, you know what, Ayo, you might not have gone to university, but at least the people you've communicated with have impacted you to some extent. You can do something for yourself. People kept telling me about my communication skills. Like, oh, wow, you speak so well, and all of that and all of that. And I said, okay, let me just look for something I can do for myself. And so I thought of opening a daycare center. I'd spoken to my father. My father was excited. He said, okay, I have a flat I can give you to start with. And so I resigned from Corona, went to a Montessori college, Went to the Montessori college and finished, and I found out that, hey, it's not as
what I want.
easy as I thought.
Mm.
No, I'm not going to be able to do this. And my husband said something to me that, hey, because I was very sad. I said, oh, I've invested so much. I invested everything I was given in Corona, plus even much more to pay for the fees of the school. But my husband encouraged me, he said, look, listen, it's best you don't start what you're not sure of. Okay? So take it easy. Don't overwhelm yourself. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's be sure. Whatever your hands find to do now, do. Mm-hmm. And so what did I start doing? I would sell stuff and here and there. And then with the Montessori training I had, I started doing home lessons.
Okay.
So it wasn't doing home lessons that a lot of things happened. It came to a point where my husband and I had just 1,000 Naira on us. That is the beginning of this entrepreneurship journey.
Interesting. 1,000 Naira.
Yeah.
So
was a day, like I said, nothing to eat. 1,000 Naira. I cried.
At this point, your husband was a pastor?
He was a pastor. He had been, even that one is another story. Don't let us go there.
From a priest as a dad to a pastor as a husband.
So 1,000 Naira, I cried to him. I was very bitter because of so many things. Anyway, he gave me 1,000 Naira. And I looked at him and he said, I trust you. And I went to the market with that, I trust you. I had become very intentional about the things I allowed stay in my head and in my heart. So I went to the market that day, bought beans and just said, you know what, let's just make moinmoin. Moinmoin will be the only thing that I can. Beans, I bought beans and said, beans will be the only thing that I can make. That was what I thought of. Beans is the only thing I can make into different meals and the children and my husband won't even notice they're eating something different.
That's true.
So I can make moinmoin, I can do akara, I can cook beans, I can make begiri for amala.
Okay.
So that day I made moinmoin and my sister-in-law came visiting. It was my sister-in-law's visit that made me realize that this moinmoin can actually be sold because she perceived the aroma and she asked to taste. I gave her one and she liked it. She said, oh, Ayo, can you make for me tomorrow? I said, certainly. And so she said, how much will it cost me? I said, well, this cost me about 1,000. She gave me 1,000 Naira. I made moinmoin for her the next day. And she got home. Her friend was waiting for her. Her friend tasted the moinmoin and asked for more. And my sister-in-law said, hell no. If you want more, I have somebody who can make for you. And so she sent a message to me that someone has given me 1,000 Naira to give to you to make. And I was like, really? Meanwhile, when she told me to make for her, I'd removed some wraps. So I quickly took some wraps to my neighbor. My neighbor tasted it and ran downstairs and said, and ran upstairs. She was living downstairs. I said, oh my God, I love the taste of the moinmoin. Where did you buy it from? I said, from here. That's how it started. My neighbor gave me 1,000 Naira. And then I said, oh, so there's something in this moinmoin. And then I took moinmoin to church. Pastor's wife took moinmoin to church. I told pastor's flock that pastor's wife has moinmoin to sell. And everybody patronized me. So from there, I thought again, where else can I take this moinmoin to? And I thought of Corona School. It was like a light bulb moment for me.
Where you used to work.
Where I used to work. But at the same time, I was like, hey, I began to cringe. What would they say? I left Corona saying that I was going to open my own daycare center. And I'll turn up with moinmoin at the gate. Won't they laugh? I just said to myself, there's dignity in labor. Why worry what people will say? So I took moinmoin to the gates of Corona. And that's how the story took another turn.
Oh, wow. So before we get into Corona gates, right? So did you know what you were doing around pricing, or you're just like, I'm just going to take what I get and turn it into moinmoin?
So, of course, from making for my sister-in-law, I was very, very deliberate. I knew that I needed to have some money by the side. Okay, so I knew that I made some extra on it. I made some money on it. And so making for her friend too. And then by the time I started selling in church, I knew that I was supposed to calculate my price and the price I was going to sell to be able to make a profit. So from that time, from that point of not even being able to add rent, add electricity like I do now, all my overheads, nothing. But the fact that I took 1,000 Naira to the market, I made this product and I'm selling. And from sales, I've made 2,500. That was good enough for me at that time. Okay. So by the time I got to Corona, I now started reading about business. And so I began to put, so for the overhead cost, the only overhead cost I thought I had at that time was transport, to fuel the car, to be able to get products from here to there. And I started recording. And so from recording my sales, and recording my costs, I knew that there had to be a margin of profit. So for my husband too, there was also some gap in ministry. And so at that point, it was just like we're relying solely on the money, on money coming from Moin-Moin. So I couldn't even I couldn't be very, very disciplined to, ensure that I wasn't touching my profits. So I just said, you know what? Let me just ensure I'm saving, because I had started reading about business and I knew the importance of putting money aside. I couldn't go to the bank. I was like, it would be ridiculous to take how much to the bank. So I was giving my daughter 100 naira. And she was very, very, very insistent on collecting her 100 naira every day. For her too, was a task that she was enjoying. She enjoyed catching. She could come to me at the end of the week and say, Mommy, we have 700 naira. And then there were times we made good sales. And the 100 naira would move to 200 naira. There was a point, so we're like saving about 1,000 naira every day.
Oh, wow.
And my daughter was very excited. And we're like, now, this money, you have to take it to the bank. That's how no, we hadn't opened an account. Yeah, I began to take it to the bank, but to my personal account. So after that, I saw an advert on the paper.
What year was this?
It was still the same year. So I started in 2007.
2007.
Yes.
Okay.
So 2008 was when I stepped out. Towards the end of 2007, I started. 2008 was when I started going down to Corona.
Okay.
And so at Corona, I met different people who challenged me. And they told me that, oh, your mama is fantastic. Why stay with Moin-Moin? Why stick to Moin-Moin? Can't you make jollof rice? Can't you make fried rice? So I added all of that. And people will have the children celebrating birthdays and say, tomorrow is my daughter's birthday. Can you do 10 packs of rice? Somebody can say, it's my birthday. Can I have some packs of rice for my office? So that opened me to a larger market.
So how did you cope selling at the place where you used to work?
Oh, some people laughed.
Okay.
Some people asked questions, but I was too excited that I was making money to even bother.
Care.
And, I discovered that I had so much in me more than I thought. Because I said to myself, you know what? Because at some point, all the questions were beginning to almost getting at me. And I said to myself, you know what? Attack is the best form of defense. And so before they come to me, I would have prepped myself. There were times I would be dancing. I would see somebody who had told me, don't leave, come walking towards me, and I would be dancing. And I remember the first day at Corona, I actually was shouting. I began to shout, Moin-Moin. I was shouting at the top of my voice. Moin-Moin for sale, Moin-Moin for sale. Buy this Moin-Moin. Your life will not remain the same again. And people were laughing. Some people would laugh, but I was too excited that this money was even rolling in.
Oh, wow.
And there were times I would be dancing. Some people would say, Ayo, kilo wa de toyi. I'm like, don't worry. Some people say, where's this guy? I just turn everything to a dance. I began to be very, very deliberate in being joyful, and that suppressed the pain that I would have felt. And so when people started asking for different things, I was excited, responding to them. Until somebody asked for one Eastern soup. I think it was edikaikong. I had never learned to cook. I won't take you through that. It's a long story, but I learned to cook edikaikong, and then I learned to cook other, Igbo soups and all of that. And then I met a woman at the gate who was also a parent.
Same Corona gate.
The same Corona gate. Who said to me, Madam, normally I would greet her and she would give me a cold shoulder. But that day, somehow, I thought she was alone, because normally she would come with her oddlies to pick up her children and all of that. Then I walked up to her and said, Madam, taste this moinmoin. And she said to me, actually, I see you at the gate every now and then. What do you do? Give me that, look that made me feel very, very small. But I had learned at the gate that no is not the end of the world.
Yes.
So I just said to her, Madam, this is what I do, with all joy, ignoring her, her condescending look. And she said to me, well, I actually wish I could help you, but I can't. Are you Yoruba? I said, Ma, I'm Yoruba. I thought that was going to give me some form of ticket. And she said, oh, yeah, that's why it's unfortunate. I can't help you. I said, really? Why? She said, I actually have an oil service firm. We are looking for a caterer. I braced up. I was like, yes, but I'm here. She said, no, you can't do it. I said, but why? She said, because we need a caterer who can cook Igbo soups and Calabar soups. And you're a Yoruba girl. I said, Ma,
I can cook it.
Check me out. Not only can I cook it, I went to the University of Soups. She said, oh, wow, interesting. You look very, very enthusiastic. I said, Ma, check me out. She gave me her card. Told me to go see her HR manager. I went to see her HR manager. HR manager said, okay, I'll give you a chance. Cook for everybody. How much will it cost? She told me to stick to a particular amount. And I said, okay. And I cooked for the whole staff, 100 staff. I mean, I was like a woman I began to look for people to come cook for me. You know, I was like Peter in this Bible. And the Bible says that he caught so much, he was looking for
She had to
people.
get people.
And so I had people to come cook for me. And we went to the company the next day. And everybody was shouting after they finished eating our food, "We want no leftovers. We want no leftovers." That's how I became the official caterer. And I stopped at that point, going to the gate because I couldn't manage it anymore.
Locations.
So I cooked for that company for 3 years.
Wow.
In the 3 years, I bought my first car.
Okay, so now you are catering for this organization, you know. So after that, how did the business
Move to the
next level? Yeah.
So while I was catering for this organization, I had this burden, you know, the excitement that I had moved from 1,000 naira to 50,000 naira to 100,000 naira, now to signing checks. Because of course, as soon as I started catering for the organization, the checks were coming in. I had to register my company and all of that. So I came across an article. So before I came across the article, there was actually a burning desire for more. I began to see myself like life has really just started. And so I was hungry, I was energetic, you know, my drive was high. So I began to hunger for more. And then my faith plays a big role in my journey. So there's no way I will not talk about my faith. And the first thing I did was begin to pray to God, God, open more opportunities for me. Okay. And I came across a newspaper article where an American company, Goldman Sachs, was coming into Nigeria to partner with the Lagos Business School under their Enterprise for Development Center to reach out to women who were in businesses but lacked business skills.
Okay.
When I saw it, I was excited. But then I suddenly became afraid when I saw they were doing this in conjunction with the Lagos Business School. I was like,
you qualify.
They will not even consider me. Didn't go to university, nothing, no qualification, ordinary typing and short time, secretarial school and all of that. But again, my husband said to me, Ayo, stop second guessing yourself. Look at your journey so far. You know, just make an attempt. You never know what you'll be able to get out of something if you do not try. And so that was how I applied. Applying was another journey because it took a bit of time. They had to go through different applications. Then they called me for the next stage. I celebrated the next stage. Like, I was even like, God, even if they don't call me, the fact that they even considered me.
Stage,
you know, I went for the interview. When I was at the interview, I was taken aback when I entered the room and I saw people sitting around a huge table. And then they were like, what makes you think you qualify for this opportunity? Your business is just a small business. You started with 1,000 naira. You're selling Moin-Moin for God's sake. The truth is there's so many other women who are doing amazing things. We're not saying what you're doing is not amazing, by the way, but we just feel that, are you going to be able to, are you an investment that will be worth these people's while? I said, the passion arose in me again, like that passion at the gate in
At the gate where you're shouting.
And I began to talk to them about my journey, how I started, how I moved from selling Moin-Moin to making jollof rice. I began to reel out everything I had gone through with all the meals I prepared. And they said, calm down, calm down. And then they said, but your daughter is in Corona school. If you can afford to send your daughter to Corona school, then you should be able to pay for this program on your own. And I said, my daughter is on scholarship. She's in Corona school on scholarship because she was turned out to be the best staff child for that session. I told them all the story and said, okay. Anyway, long story short, I got on the program. The program was for 6 months. The program literally changed my life. I mean, I began to hear other people's stories. And I heard some teary stories. And I became excited that I wasn't the only one that had a teary story. That other people had gone through even some worse things than I had gone through. So that helped me to take off the cloak of, I've been abused, I've been this, I've been that. I just began to drop my past like it was hot, you know. My past has nothing to do with where I'm going. So I mean, the fact that I began to work on my mind again helped me. And I finished the program. I began to implement the little I could. I couldn't implement everything. I mean, I had courses like math. I remember the accounts class. The first The day we had accounting, I cried my eyes out at my age. I turned 40 on that program. I cried my eyes out because my father almost killed me over math. And then here I was again. It was like my life was beginning to take shape. And these
Maths is
numbers,
another obstacle.
these numbers have come again to terrorize me. But I just realized that, look, you can't apply everything. Just do the bits you can. And that's how I've been able to scale through. We finished the program, and then we're called, 3 of us were nominated to make our presentations on how the program had impacted us. And I knew nothing else but to tell my journey, to talk about how I had been able to navigate my way to that point. And I stood out again, initially second guessing myself. I remember when I was I was nominated, the first thing I said was, please, I went to Mr. Banky, call him Banky. I said, Banky, please, my English is not good. I'm unable to express myself. I'm unable to do this. Banky said, Ayo, whatever you want to say it to them. Just go and say something. And then I ran to my husband because he was at the program. I said, Femi, they want to put me on the spot. My husband held my shoulders again. Ayo, why do you second guess yourself? You can do it, girl. And he said, you know what, don't look at anybody. When you're making your presentation, just be looking at me.
Eyes
He
on
was
me.
sitting right in the middle of the hotel. And then as soon as I was called, he looked at me and said, you just did this, thumbs up, girl. And I made my presentation. And when I finished, everybody was clapping. I was like, who, me? And I really told them how it had been. I told them prior to this program, I didn't know what benchmarking was all about. I didn't know what strategy was all about. I didn't know what bookkeeping was all about. But hey, now check me out. That check me out was the signature part of my speech. And everybody applauded me. And then I finished, and the Americans walked up to me and said, oh my goodness, you have an amazing story. We'd like to feature you. We'd like to come to your office. And I'm like, I don't have an office. I do all of this from my kitchen. Anyway, long story short, I came to my house the next day.
Wow.
They recorded me rapping Moin-Moin and doing everything, and they left. I won't elaborate on that. There was huge drama in that, but that was what happened. And a few months after, they sent me a letter. They'd like you to come to America to share your story. That's how my life changed. I was invited to America, and I shared my story, and I became more energetic and determined that this business must work. I even thought that was a climax. I didn't know it was just the beginning. And here we are 15 years after that. It's still the beginning.
I know I'm interrupting your watch time, but this is so important. I wouldn't interrupt it if it wasn't important. Now, this is a message for business owners in Nigeria, courtesy our sponsors for this episode, Traction Apps. Now, they want me to let you know that you should not be POS less. If that's a thing. So if you have a business and you need POS for the business, Traction Apps is your best friend. They've got you. So they have 3 types of POSs, but in this video, I'll be talking about 2, the ones that I'm holding. So we have this one. This is Traction 1, right? It basically runs like an Android phone. So when it is on, you see that the Traction app is installed on the POS. So you can basically manage your stock, your inventory on it and still use it to receive money. Now, this POS is going for 100,000 Naira, but they have a lease to own solution, which is you get to just pay 500 Naira every day until you complete your payment. Okay, so this is one. It is a POS and it doubles as a phone, a device as well, an Android device where you can operate the app on it and just see everything happening on your account. Now we have the regular POS. We'll call this Traction Pro. Okay, so it's a regular POS like you know it. You slot in your card here. So I'm just going to turn it on. You can do all the whole purchase and whatnot and issue receipts. Now, this POS is going for 50,000 Naira. But again, you can lease to own, which means that you can start paying 150 Naira every day until you complete your payments. So if you've been struggling to get POS for your business, just go to the link in the description and apply for one. You'll get it within 48 hours. It is that fast. Remember, I always say Traction Apps, they're every business owner's friend. They're your partner because they have so many solutions to help you win and to help you grow as a business. So let's get back to the video of today. Enjoy.
Because I remember when I was invited to the White House. I wasn't invited to the White House because I was any special. It was because I had experienced a disappointment. So there I was again at that season of my life saying, okay, this business must move to the next level. I need to open another branch. And I went to my bank, asked for a loan. And my bank said, hey, okay, you're doing well. We can see that money has been coming in and out. But you know what? If you have 70%, we'll give you 30%. And I'm like, if I had 70%, I won't be here. So I was very disappointed. I was really very distraught. And then I got a call saying that from EDC saying, oh, the Americans have contacted us again to find out how's your business doing. I said, it's doing well. Have you been able to get a loan to grow your business? I said, come and see what this bank told me. And he said, wow, Ayo, guess what? I said, what? He said, well, the White House has reached out to Goldman Sachs saying we need 2 women to showcase on International Women's Day. We need 1 woman who has been able to access a loan for her business. And we need another woman who has been growing her business, has gone to the bank, and the bank has said no to.
And that was you.
That was what took me to the White House.
Oh, wow.
So it's really been a journey of grace. But with grace, it's also been a journey of walking the walk. You know, ensuring that, you know, do all that you need to do to ensure that business is growing. A journey of discipline and, of course, a journey of a lot of hard work.
Fantastic. Wow. So if I take it back a bit, you're invited to the White House. How did you feel when the First Lady tasted your product?
So the tasting of my product was not the first amazing thing that happened. So initially, when I went to the US to share my story, it was at Goldman Sachs annual general meeting.
Okay.
So I came back to Nigeria, and then I got another letter. This time around from President Bill Clinton. I'm like, oh, is this a dream? Oh yes. So we want you to come. So what happened was this company that sponsored me partners with the Clinton Global Initiative.
Okay.
And that time they wanted to invest in women, and so he reached out to the association, the organization reached out to Goldman Sachs. We're looking for a woman who you have invested in and who you can see growth in. She was somebody that nobody wrote anything, nobody knew anything good could come out of her, but you know, she's growing, she's shining. And they reached out to me. I said, yes, come and speak at the Clinton Global Initiative. So that was my first major outing. And of course, when I went there was a lot of training me how to speak to the press, how to stand before a camera, how to do. So we see me do all of this professionally because I've been well trained. So yeah, so I did that and then came back and then went on was invited again for a mentoring session, 3 months in the US by a group they call the Fortune 500 Women.
Okay.
And so I went on that. All of that began to build strength and tenacity in me. And then I was invited to speak at the White House on this program I just mentioned. But that wasn't where I met Michelle Obama. I was invited again to the United States of Women's Conference.
Okay.
United States of Women all over the world. So I went in to represent Africa to talk about my journey. And so from there, that was at that program, there was a dinner. And at that dinner, before I left Nigeria, they told me they want no leftovers moment to be on the menu.
Wow.
And I was looking forward to carry leaves from Nigeria, carry beans and pepper. And they said, no, be coming
grinder.
No, you don't need that. So what they made me do was, I did, there was a lot of video here, prepping moinmoin, giving them my recipe and all of that. And so by the time I got there, there was no time for me to enter the kitchen to make moinmoin. So it was just the recipe, the processes, and little tweaking here and there. And no leftovers moinmoin landed. And so when I was, on the day I was to receive Michelle Obama, so I didn't even know that was going to happen. It was supposed to be a surprise for me. But before I left Nigeria, I remember when my husband was taking me to the airport. My children were there, and I said, please, before we leave, can we just kneel down and pray? And my tall son was like, oh, here she comes again, this woman with her prayers. And then my husband pulled his hand. The mom says, kneel down. So he goes, so what are we praying about this time? And I said, I just have a desire that I meet Michelle Obama. And my son goes, I said, I have a desire. My husband just started praying. Mommy has a desire to meet Michelle Obama. Let that desire come to pass. And I said, amen. So it was on the day of the program. He just told me, Ayo, there's a surprise for you. I said, what's the surprise? He said, at the dinner, we're giving you the honor of bringing Michelle Obama to the stage. I died. I said, really? He said, yes. It's not going to start from there. You're going to receive her in the green room.
Wow.
And it's not even going to be that alone. We want you to carry a tray. Okay, so there was a tray of my moinmoin in the room, and then they told me to present a bouquet of flowers to her. I was waiting for Michelle to come. And I was saying to myself, God, if this is a dream, I'm okay to go from here. Don't even wake me up. And then I looked at my mama on the table, looked at the flowers. When my mama was flowers, when mama said, I dropped the flowers and I picked moinmoin, the tray. And Michelle just walked in. And she goes, Ayo, I've heard so much about you. I couldn't talk. I was star-stricken as I saw Michelle walk in. And then she hugged me. I quickly dropped the tray. And she said, is this your moinmoin? And she ate it. And I'm like, I just began to remember a lot of scriptures had been quoted. And because I'm like, this is the manifestation of this scripture.
They're not meant to eat like that. But she did it.
She did it.
Yes.
She did it. And then I went upstage and I said, oh, this is it will be the most unforgettable moment of my life, introducing Michelle Obama. And that went. Another icing on the cake for me was when I was invited to Switzerland. I was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum. And everybody was wondering, what has Moin-Moin got to do with World Economic Forum? I said, well, my journey is a journey of grace. It's a journey of God. It's a journey of hard work. And it's a journey of when opportunity and preparedness come together. So that's how it is.
Wow, you've literally gone everywhere to speak. Who would have thought?
Who would have
thought?
Yeah.
Wow. So let's come into the business, right? So in those in that growth phase, what are the things that you did to grow the business?
One of the first things I had to do, like I said when I was speaking earlier, was to ensure that I had a picture of what my business was in terms of record keeping. I can't overemphasize that.
Record keeping.
Times had gotten my finger burnt because I can't tell you that it's been all smooth sailing in the business. There have been times I cried. There have been times when I'm like, God, what do I do? But I've seen that record keeping is a roadmap.
Okay.
Figures don't lie. Initially, I thought I didn't believe that, but figures don't lie. Figures show you a true picture of the state of your business. So I have learned the importance of record keeping. I've learned the importance of ensuring that, every detail is kept. And so in building a team, because now the business has gone beyond me keeping records for myself. So in building a team, I ensure that all of that is, reciprocated by all that are involved in the different aspects of our businesses.
This is me interrupting your watch time to tell you to like this video, share it, and also subscribe to my channel. You're still watching How They Did It with TriciaBiz.
So that has been for me number one.
Okay.
Number two, well, I don't know I think maybe that one should have been number one, because if you don't have a product, there can be no record to keep. So the quality of our product is key. And over time, we've had to change a lot of things. We've had to introduce new products to the market. We had to be very, very creative. Record keeping also helps you to see, okay, so what's happening? Something is dropping here. Sales are dropping here. Why do I have sales dropping? Then you suddenly find out that, hey, people are gravitating towards this particular other product. Or competition has come. And so you have to up your game. And so that's where your creativity comes in. So for us, we have continued to evolve.
Okay.
We've continued to evolve. So yes, the regular traditional moinmoin is there. But then we're looking at the Gen Z, looking at what they like. They like to go for pizza. They like to go for those fast. They probably are getting weary of getting their fingers dirty when it comes to wrapping the leaves. So we had to introduce new products to the market. So we had to introduce Moinza, which comes out like pizza. We had to introduce Moinwich, which comes like sandwich. We had to introduce Moin wrap that comes like shawarma. And we had to introduce, what's the last one? Moin bog that comes like burger. So we've had to continue to evolve and innovate. We've had to introduce other products to the market. I mean, people know us for our traditional meals. And so we have been paying attention to that. We do amala, and we do agbegiri. Our firewood jollof rice is there. We do ewa going. So we don't make all meals, You know, but when we go for outdoor, because we now do outdoor catering.
Okay.
So when we go for outdoor kitchen, we make meals as the customer wants. But we have a base here in Bagada. So we've looked at the environment and we are mindful, we're very deliberate in serving what the customers are asking for.
Ask for.
So what we also do is that we have different meals in bowls that you can pre-order.
Okay.
You know, so that helps us to guard against waste. That helps us to also be able to focus, so we're not spreading ourselves thinly. There was a time I was like, oh, I want to be everywhere. But I found out I was getting my fingers burnt. You know, quality was being compromised, you know, because, okay, there's nothing wrong in having a wide array of foods, but you have to look at the staff, the complement of staff you have. You have to look at the effect of that on your overhead, you know. So, you know, because business is seasonal itself. So you have to consider all of that. So those are the type of things we've considered. Do we look at what competition is doing? Absolutely we do. Do we replicate what competition is doing? Certainly not. Okay, so in all of this, we find our own identity and we try to present to the market what we know the market needs.
Interesting. So what one or two marketing strategies have worked for your brand?
So to a large extent, thank God for social media. Social media has made it very, very easy. And when it comes to social media, you know, I'm trying to see how we can move away from there, because I'm not, as things have been going, I've become busier by the day. You know, a lot of people know me as the face of the business.
Okay.
Now, I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories on social media. And so I use that to also promote the business, tell stories around the business. I've become a lot of things, to the glory of God. I'm a mentor to a lot of people. I inspire young girls. And so all of that I see that I'm able to do, I ensure that I carry my business into it. I carry no leftovers into it. I facilitate on different mentoring platforms. I've become a board member on different associations, you know. So I carry my business into it. And so that gives us a lot of visibility. That gives us visibility. And so we leverage those relationships. And so it's important for you to leverage different relationships. You know, even those relationships that you think are not going to, you know, at the end of the day be profitable to you, you'll be amazed. You know, and so, but one thing I do is that there's a culture of the business. We have a culture, and I try to pass the culture. You know, I ensure that everybody all the people that work with us are aware of the culture. We have values that, you know, we don't compromise on. And yesterday, my daughter was telling me, why don't you advertise on this platform? And I said, no, what they do there,
what they represent,
is not in line with our values. You know, so that is important for us. So that helps us to make informed decisions on what we want to do, where we want to go, and what we want to be involved in. Because there are opportunities everywhere, but you can't take advantage of all opportunities. And so you have to be very focused. So, you know, focus is important in business. You know, it helps you to be deliberate about your growth. It helps you to also track your growth and helps you to project. So where do we want to be in the next 5 years? Where do we want to be in the next 10 years? What's the business looking at like? You know, so I would say that it's important focus is important. Team building is important. Building a team, because you cannot be the one doing everything. Team building is important, and of course collaboration is important. Right now we've gone into bread baking, and so that's as a result of a collaboration we have just gotten into. So there are times when you can't do something alone by yourself, and you have to collaborate with people it's just as good.
Interesting. So how do you manage theft? As I know that's a big issue in food business. Theft and wastage.
So there's a lot of stock taking that happens.
Okay.
There's a lot of tracking that happens. For theft, we have CCTV cameras everywhere. We have our records. So there are people, we ensure that people are responsible for different things. We have consultants who also come in to take inventories, you know, so that helps us to a large extent. Can we totally eliminate it? I must say that we can't. I don't think anybody can. But you know, my principle also is do the best that you can do, and then we've had people who have been caught pilfering, and I just say to them that, well, you know that I've always been talking about this, and so when you're caught, there's no I'm sorry. You just have to leave. You know. So for wastage, it's the same thing. for you to be able to track what comes in. We have an idea. We know what comes in from a particular measurement. And so we also track everything. We're taking records of what we're doing. And at the end of the day, if the books are not balancing, then we know there's a problem.
There's a problem. Great. So if we wanted to compare running a restaurant and then the outdoor catering, which would you say is more profitable?
So profitability, certainly outdoor catering is more profitable. Outdoor catering is more profitable. Are we big on outdoor catering? Not exactly.
Why?
So many reasons.
Okay.
So many reasons. But let me say this. You see, it's important to know what your business represents.
Okay.
I was speaking at a program yesterday and I was saying to them, now this is not cast in stone. No. I was saying to them that the truth is that the income that comes to me as my salary from the company is nothing compared to what comes to me as a result of the things I do outside, platforms I sit on and all of that. And at different seasons, we have focused on different areas. There was a time we were big on outdoor catering.
Okay.
And that was a time when I had a full complement of staff that could do that well. I'm very weary of misrepresentation.
Okay.
For example, I'm going out of town.
So you've taken a everyday product, Moin-Moin, and you've branded it and built a business out of it. So what do you think is the importance of branding? How has that helped the brand scale?
There's an identity that people want to relate with. They want to be able to, have a connection with that identity. Okay. And that's what branding is all about, So, and that's why even beyond the quality is very important. Beyond the quality also is the culture. Beyond the quality is the culture and is the value. The values that the brand represents. And that's what is very, very important to us. So it's so important to be able to identify with a brand that actually believes in what you believe in. And that also portrays what you want, what your lifestyle portrays and what people want people to know you as. So for branding, that's it for us. And that's why for everything we do, the No Leftovers brand is there. We're not going to change the name. We're going into other areas of businesses. It's going to still be this No Leftovers.
What does the name come about?
So it was a time where what are we going to do? What's it going to call? We had gifted hands. But as soon as No Leftovers came up, it was like, hey, you can interpret it into different languages. No Leftovers, Yoruba, Kosajeku, Igbo. They said something. I can't remember, but it was such a catchy phrase. And that's how we have stuck to it.
Fantastic. Great. So if we combine motherhood, being the wife of a pastor, running a business, how are you able to, amongst every other thing, you're speaking, you're sitting on boards, etc. What advice do you have? How have you been able to manage it? And what advice do you have for, upcoming entrepreneurs who have to juggle different titles and caps and still excel in business?
Yeah, so what I say is that prioritize. I mean, we're women, we juggle a lot of balls, and life does happen. Life has happened to me on a number of occasions. And I have to be truthful to myself. Be true to yourself first. So what can you handle? And so when prioritizing comes into play, when there is an earthquake and you're juggling the balls, some balls will drop. Let them drop. But just hold on to the most precious of them. Which one is of priority to you? So for me, my faith is of priority. My marriage is of priority. My children. Okay, so, and then the business comes in. So there are times when, I remember when I started the business, as supportive as my husband was, and I know would always be, he frowns at, you come home at 12 midnight because you are catering for a party. So when I found out that was creating a problem, when we had such jobs in the past, I was always deliberate to look out for people who could stand in for me. Okay? And then there were times I wouldn't take up such jobs, knowing that other jobs will come. And then I will put myself in the fore for those jobs that are conducive for me and will not affect my home, will not affect my children. Because what's the point? Running a successful business and my children are struggling. They get into depression because I'm not there and all of that. And so I'm not saying I'm a superwoman.
Okay.
I have a very good support system. I have support system in the person of my siblings, my husband's siblings, some very, very close friends to me. And so there are times I can't do things. I reach out to them. So having a support system helps you to navigate life easily.
Well.
So that's what has helped me in business. And also, of course, my team in the form of my staff. I've always had good staff. Oh, do I have issues here once in a while? Of course, that's life. But I must say that to a large extent, my staff have been a great support system.
How do you attract great team members? Because if I interview 10 businesses, 8 are complaining of manpower, getting good hands, and then, so how do you?
Well,
do prayers?
Absolutely, and to a large extent, you attract your like.
Yeah.
So there are lots of the things I look out for when we employ staff. I mean, to the highest caliber of staff, I have to be involved in the interview process. And so there are questions I ask. And if you ask them, there are questions I ask that are unrelated to their job. I ask questions about background. I ask questions about values, and then we do background checks. And so this, to a large extent, helps us. But like I said, the people we've employed who came in with great prospects, and at the end of the day, they disappointed us. But
otherwise,
that's life.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. What processes have you put in place to ensure that the taste is the same every time?
Our trade secrets. So we have our recipes.
Okay.
We have our recipes that we have been using over the years. Now we tweak every now and then, especially when we have customers who say, just a little more pepper, no salt, no oil, different specifications. But basically, we have stuck to our recipes.
Okay.
And our recipes have really, really given us the edge over what you have that obtains in the market. So basically, that's it. And we have staff who have, the recipe is not available to all staff.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we have kept that tradition of that recipe and it has worked for us.
So how do you ensure enforcement?
So what we also do is that we have, we put our recipes into sachets so that we ensure that they are the same.
Okay.
So we don't always have to rely on people having to count, having to always measure, because you know what it is with the environment we are in. Sometimes, I've had situations where a staff just dips hands into a particular ingredient and doesn't measure, doesn't count, and says, oh, I've been in this business for so many years. I know the feel. So to avoid all of that drama, we ensure that as much as possible, a lot of things are done for them.
Okay.
And so that at the end of the day, they just put
it comes out the same. Great. It's been absolutely interesting, chatting with you and just gleaning from your wisdom. So the business is how old this year?
15 years.
15 years. And in those 15 years, you've gotten so many lessons. Can you just give us 1, 2 valuable lessons that upcoming entrepreneurs can hold on to? And
key, on top of the lessons I've learned, is staff. Invest in staff, invest in staff, invest in staff. Let them have a sense of belonging in what you're doing. There are times when, if you're not careful, staff will think that you're making all the money and it's not affecting them. It's not trickling down to them. They are not benefiting. But, give them a sense of belonging. Step out of your way sometimes to, make them happy. Make them, be a part and parcel of what you're doing. Let them know that, look, this business belongs to us all. You can't enforce this in terms of, you can't force them to believe it, but you do your best. There was a time every year we'll have what we call staff appreciation day. We have customer appreciation day, we have staff appreciation day. And so this time around, we have staff of the month every month, where we showcase the staff, celebrate the staff. Because you see, at the end of the day, these are the people that build the business. So try as much as possible to invest in them. And then secondly, you have to ensure that your brand is consistent. You deliver your brand promise. yeah, you deliver your brand promise, because that's where the customers get disappointed. And I keep telling my staff, one disappointed customer will affect hundreds of customers. They would hinder them from coming in, because they've had a bad experience. So what we try to do, our customers, we focus on our customers. We see our customers who come in to pay for our services as customers, and then the ones that work in who are our staff, they are also customers. So focus on your customers, and then they'll help you build your business.
Fantastic. So if I throw a wild guess question at you, right? You've been in business for 15 years. Can you estimate how many wraps of moinmoin you have sold?
In 15 years? Yes. Oh my God.
Wild guess.
In 15 years?
Yes.
That will be 10 million. No, seriously. The largest single order we've had has been 10 boxes of moinmoin in a day. No, what am I talking about? 100 boxes of moinmoin. 100 boxes of moinmoin in a day. And in a box at that time, we had 12 wraps.
Okay.
So
that's 120
wraps.
That's
120 wraps in a day. And there are days we sell 20, 30 boxes. So yeah, we're talking about millions. I can't really count.
Wow. Somebody's selling millions. Thank you so much, Ma, for your time. So guys, that's it. I'll see you on the next episode of How They Did It with TriciaBiz.